So, welcome to the podcast. Two folks that I'm sure you may not be aware of who they are, but you'll know who Alicia is. Hello, Alicia. How you doing?
Hello, everybody.
Of course, member of the Big Rab Show team and drum major extraordinaire. Of course, you all know Alicia. But joining us, we also have Valerie Quinn. Valerie, how are you?
Hiya, Rab. How are you?
The very best. Now, we're going to be talking about quite a heavy topic on the podcast this week, one of which that we've been wanting to bring to the show now for a number of weeks. And it's a difficult one to tackle, and for good reason. We're going to be talking about mental health, depression, anxiety, stress, all of that sort of stuff. And us as human beings, not just musicians, pipers and drummers and such, we all kind of have moments in time where we do suffer from mental health issues as well as physical health issues. So the reason we have you guys on the show this week is because you guys are involved in a bit of a group that's helping bands in the marching scene here in Northern Ireland. Valerie, do you want to tell us a bit about this group, first of all?
Sure. The group is called Light of Foot, and the name is chosen purposely. Light of Foot is a very famous march, a flute band march, but it's how we want our members to be. We don't want them to feel very heavy laden. We want them to feel nice and light of foot, obviously, and then of course the foot marching. It all just came together in that day. Yeah. But it started way back in June 2019, long before COVID ever was a concern, and it was one of a gentleman who was in flute band in Scotland was actually working in Belgium, and he had been on a train journey, and a lady committed suicide by throwing herself in front of the train. And he was really, really shook up by it and really upset by it. And he happened to be speaking to a friend of his who was in flute band in Belfast. And Billy said, at the same time the conversation, this was all coming around, and he was talking about, and there was a high incidence of suicides in the flute band scene in Belfast as well around that time. And Billy says, I can't do anything, but I know someone who maybe can. And he got in touch with me. So we started off very, very simple. We said, look, we just need somewhere where people can talk. And I contacted quite a few of ones around the band scene who, I knew had come through their own mental difficulties or were familiar with mental health and maybe even worked in the field, or, they had family members and so on. And we ended up with about 17 or 18 different members. Alicia was one of them as well. I know her through Corba accordion, which is the other string to her bow, as well as the pipes. And we got together. So we set up just a very simple Facebook page. Mm-hmm. And the whole premise of it is that we're here to listen. We're not here to judge. We're just here to talk to. We're not saying we are mental health experts in any way. We're here primarily to listen to you and to what they call signpost and guide you to someone who can maybe help you further if you feel you need to. And sometimes even just being able to talk to someone is half the battle. Within the marching band scene in particular, sometimes all people have in common is the band and the interest and so on. So the very fact that we are all bands people ourselves, or in the Orange Orders, means that there's that connection to begin with. And it means that when you're going to a formal therapist or a doctor, etc., you sometimes don't want to mention what your hobbies are. And it can be a blocker to feeling that you can talk. Plus the fact that the marching bands are such a fantastic support network. When you think you are in that person's company every week at band practice, then maybe twice a week at parades and competitions, you're in them, when they're changing. And you're probably if you're aware of what to look out for, you're probably among the first people who will see the signs, sometimes more than family. You'll notice someone hasn't been at band practice for a few weeks, whereas they would regularly be in attendance. They're not the usual selves. They're maybe a wee bit more withdrawn than they normally would be, and so on. And you're also able to provide support in a way that sometimes direct family members can't. Personally speaking, I suffered from mental health, and there's so many types of it. It's not that you feel sad and you're sitting crying all the time. That's not what it is. There are so many different types of it, which I know we'll cover later in our discussion. And we have kind of all been there in one format or another. Mine's is work-related stress. Someone else is depression. Someone else is eating disorders. It's all those mental health things. So it's not that you're expecting someone to be sitting crying all the time. It's just someone just feels that life is sometimes a wee bit too much for them.
Yeah.
And we're trying to get rid of that stigma. You know, it's okay not to be okay, as the famous saying goes. So what we've tried to do is to raise awareness just within the bands, to raise the awareness of kind of what to look out for, to raise awareness of where you can go to get further help, even just to be there for them to chat to. So it's, we're not saying we're going to solve all your problems, but we at least want to be there to help you try.
I think that's kind of where I want to come to this from, just to make people aware of this group and that it's available, not just for folks in the marching scene. I know, you know, folks locally here in Northern Ireland are well aware of the marching scene, but for folks in the pipe band scene as well. Alicia, I'm sure you know yourself that recently in the last 6-7 months, the piping scene have been really quite harshly hit with folks suffering from all sorts of mental health issues. And I'm not sure if it's a result of the pandemic and bands not being able to practice together, things like that. How have you found things in the piping scene of late and folks, you know, struggling with mental health issues?
I'll always say with the pipe band scene, we have been hit very bad. And I think it's really important. Yes, we are coming from a marching band background, as in with light of foot. But even when you look at pipe bands, there's nearly, with most pipe bands, bar when you're going up the grades, it's like a family band. So if one person has been hit, you know, there's a big group of people. And as well as Valerie was saying there about marching bands, you're seeing each other one night a week at band practice, and then maybe 2 times a week at the weekends with band parades. I suppose pipe bands are in a similar position because you practice 2 nights a week, and then you're a full Saturday together, and then you're back the next week. Now, obviously, because of the pandemic, we haven't had that much contact. So I suppose for pipe bands this year, it's been very difficult because you're practicing via Zoom or some means. We haven't been meeting up socially and things. So I suppose it's difficult to pick up those signs to see if somebody is struggling a wee bit, and also the stigma that comes across with, yeah, I'm having a really bad day here, you know, ease up a bit. So yeah, I think for the pipe band world, it has been very hard, you know, with the accordion band. Like obviously most people know I'm from an accordion band background. Before I went into drum majoring, we were able to meet sooner than flute bands and pipe bands because we weren't blowing an instrument. So COVID, so we were able to get back a wee bit quicker. So obviously that's had an impact for our band, but yeah, I think for the pipe band world as well, it is when you're competing in that high stress environment, you are like a family member, and I think if it hits one person, it kind of knocks everybody else out of sync.
It does. Anecdotally, I've always found that it has a kind of ripple effect, whereas you have a band where one person has taken that final drastic step, that it won't be the last, which is always a scary thing. And I mean, there's no such thing as, you know, counselling for band members after losing a member of the band. And as you say, Alicia, and as you've said quite rightly, we are a family. And to be honest, I don't think the genre of band is important.
No.
Because regardless of whether you're flute, accordion, brass, pipe, you are a family. You have that support network, you have that closeness, and you have that contact. And it really doesn't matter what instrument you play. So that's what we've lost through the pandemic. And I think that now that we're coming out of the pandemic, I was telling you, Rab, earlier on that many, many years ago, whenever I was struggling with my mental health, the doctor said to me that what happens is that your adrenaline keeps you going. So I had kind of thought when the pandemic hit that we would see an increase in contacts through the page, but we didn't. But then when I've kind of been thinking about it, the doctor told me many times ago that when your adrenaline keeps you going when you need to keep going. And then when you relax, it's kind of, you know, the way when you take Alicia a week off for holidays or 2 weeks off for holidays, that's when you get the cold without fail. But it's because your adrenaline and your body has been keeping you going. And then whenever you're relaxing, all those levels come down and your serotonin and all that there comes down. And then that's when all the bugs and that they're starting. So my kind of theory, it's not an expert theory by any means, is that now that things are starting to slowly get back to more normality, that we will start to see more incidents of mental health coming to about, because people are during the pandemic, you knew you had to keep going. You knew, you know, these are difficult circumstances, we have to go. But now that we're starting to relax and come back and life is getting back to normal, band practices are getting back and all that kind of stuff, I think we'll start to see more of this sort of effect. And you're already experiencing it in the, as we call it, the pipe band scene.
Yeah, definitely, Valerie. I think ourselves in the Rab Show, we've been contacted recently by a lot of folks who are getting back into competitive playing again after not lifting their instrument for well over a year and a bit. And even the thought of getting it out of the box for some folks is filling them with dread, going, this is a nightmare.
We've discussed this before, and I really do feel that regardless what band you're from, pipe band background, marching band background, whatever, even in sport, the way you are as a coach, as a music teacher, as a drum major, instructor, whatever, our strategies of teaching will have to change.
Yes.
Because we don't know what people are coming back to us like. They could be nervous coming back to an environment. The pressure of having to attend practice twice a week, once a week, whatever, committing to band parades or competitions or whatever the case may be. And also then how as an instructor you teach somebody, how you speak to somebody could completely be the hair that broke, you know, the camel's back, as the saying would go. Because you don't know what people are coming with, what they're coming to practice. You don't know what kind of day they've had or whatever. You could say one word and that be the trigger. Valerie had mentioned something there just when she was speaking there about, you know, the ripple effect in a band, that if somebody had committed suicide, and this is something that we in Light of Foot have had to do training on. So anybody that you're speaking to have attended training. So basically what the training is saying, that it's the way in which you speak about suicide. Just ask it out, you know, are you thinking about it? Because there's no shame in it.
Yeah.
Be direct. If you go with the approach, are you really thinking about committing suicide? That automatically puts a barrier up with that person who you're wanting to confide in you to help. So I suppose it's just being direct and asking the question. And also the ripple effect is what Valerie was saying, is if one person knows somebody who has committed suicide, that is already implanted in their brain. So that will have a knock-on effect. The next person and the next person knows that, oh, that's a way to do it. Where if you haven't had a close contact of suicide or anything like that, you're less likely to think about doing that act.
Yeah, to think that way. Yeah.
And you do tend to find that
surprised me actually doing that training, was like, oh, I never thought of it that way. You know, like you hear of it, but I haven't had any really close family or friends that have really went that. Yes, I've had a work colleague, but that wouldn't automatically make me think that. But then I haven't been in that deep, dark place to make me think that. But I thought that was quite interesting, that it's so common now that actually this is having a snowball effect, that this is implanted in somebody else's head, that this then could be the snowball effect. And that's why you do see in local areas that kind of is happening, one person in the next and then the next, because it's a local matter, or it's a band matter, or it's a community matter, or whatever the case may be.
And that's totally true. And what you're saying is right, Alicia, in that you tend to find where there is a spate of things like that there, it's by the same method. You know, it's you know, the way that they do commit suicide. And you're totally right. You know, it's one of the things that we have in our leaflets, like asking about it won't put it in their head. You know, it could already be there, and there's no stigma to saying, do you feel like harming yourself? You know, do you feel like ending your life? And it is right to come through out and say that, as Alicia says. It's you know, it's about being straight to the point.
Certainly.
Another thing is, I think we underestimate as bands people just how much we get from the band and the effects it has, positive effects it has on our mental health. You know, so it helps with positive feelings and our motivation. You know, it helps us relax. It helps reduce our stress, it improves our focus, and it can reduce anxiety and depression. And those are all proven benefits of music. And when you think over the past year and a half, we haven't had that at all.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's kind of, when you think particularly with the pipe bands, when you're competing, there's kind of that buzz that you get. I can't think of a better word for it, but it's an adrenaline buzz that you get when you're competing, and especially if you win, it's that elation and that joy. And we underestimate just how much bands of any genre do for your mental health. And, the fact that there's a group of friends that you have that you can go to talk to, whereas you maybe don't want to worry your wife or your husband or your parents. But the group of friends are there, they see you all day, every day. They probably know you as well as your own family. And I think we understand how strong a network we have there in the band scene. And there's absolutely nothing focused on it. I've had people approach me because I'm involved in the chair of the Ulster Bands Forum. I'm formerly chair of the Confederation of Ulster Bands, which sort of had, the interest of pipe bands as well. And I've had people from the health trusts, at various meetings saying, if we could only get an inroad into the men in marching bands, because men's mental health, particularly, or men's health generally, not even just mental health, but that whole 18 to 30 age group is the most difficult demographic for health professionals to engage to. And yet, when you're in your practice hall, you have those men sitting there where, you could talk to them about anything. So that's one of the avenues that we took in Like a Foot, in that we produced wee leaflets that you can have sitting in your band hall, or wee business cards that you can, give to your members. And literally it's just a list of useful contacts, or a little bit of, what the warning signs are and things like that there, so that you know what to watch for. And they could take the leaflet and take it home, so you don't even have to mention it, but it's there. They can take it home, have a wee read of it and think, what we can do. So we have all those leaflets and business cards and that there, and any band who would like those for their band hall, or even any lodge member who would like those for the band hall, please just reach out, and we will get you some of those, because that is exactly what they're for. Genre of band doesn't make a difference.
So can I ask then, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Valerie, maybe we should send that over in PDF to Rab. Rab, you could share that on the Big Rab Show.
Perfect. Yeah, that would be excellent. Yeah, of course.
I think although this was set up for marching bands, when you look at, different messages coming in, we have like a wee background room of admin, kind of staff or volunteers, whatever you want to call us, Valerie. But the names that are coming in are, not just bands people, it could be just
all religions, creeds and colours.
Yeah, like our posts could be shared, and then their work colleagues have liked the page because they've liked the quote, or they've liked what it's about. And so if there is anybody listening out there, just like the page, and if there is something, just message in. Yes, it was initially set up for bands, marching bands, but I mean,
open for everyone.
You're unwell, and if you want to speak to somebody and you're feeling a wee bit down, well, it's an avenue that you don't necessarily need to know who you're talking to. Yeah. Some people would prefer that they do know who they're talking to, that it's confidential. Everything is confidential on that. So
yeah. So can I ask then, folks, it's quite a difficult question then. For anyone who's going to band practice now that things are opening again, and you do happen to notice one of your members of the band is not acting the way that they normally would, what sort of things should folks be looking out for in their fellow band members to, just to see, maybe that guy in the end's not, he's not right. There's something not right with him. You know what I mean? How do you make that initial, that first step?
Thing I think is kind of recognizing the symptoms. They're not going to be sitting in the band practice in floods of tears. It's just as simple as that. It might be that they just seem really stressed out, or they might be hitting alcohol harder than they ever did before. I mean, it can be something as simple as that. They might be feeling a wee bit, hopeless. So, there's no point in me trying this. I can't get it. Or they could have recently gone through a bereavement, or, a relationship breakup, or, they're sort of like distancing from the band. They're not getting involved in things as much as they used to do. And it's just changes the behaviour out of normal, because these people so well. You can kind of see, well, they're not really attending as much as they used to, or they're not really getting involved, or normally she'd be the first person to volunteer, and she's not really getting involved at this stage.
Yeah.
And the most important thing to do is to talk to them. Don't shy away from talking to them, and let them know. I have found, and we have found through Light of Foot for the past couple of years, that if you find someone who has had mental issues and is talking to someone else, it's almost like you're finishing each other's sentences, because you're going through the same thing and they know exactly what you're talking about. One of the things we commonly talk about is a mask. You have this mask that you wear when you're out and about, where everything is hunky-dory, you're your normal, bright, breezy self, but when you come home, you take the mask off. And sometimes it can be quite hard to see behind that mask. But actually talking to the person and just saying, look, you're just not yourself, and we're a bit worried about you. I just want help. Is there anything I can do? It could even be, particularly in the, with the pandemic and all that kind of stuff, it could even be money issues. I mean, money issues can affect your mental health. Mm-hmm. I know of bands who, have approached people and said, look, I know you lost your job. I know you're struggling. The band will give you a wee loan, and that's between that person and the band. Nobody else needs to know, mm-hmm. and the bandmaster, whoever has authorization. But it's really just telling them that you're there for them. And, if they're not attending practices, make a point of contacting them. Not to put pressure on them, but just to say, look, notice you haven't been in, it's not like you, that kind of thing. Right. And really just telling that there's somebody there. One of the things that we try to do on the Facebook page, and someone actually asked us about it, because we try to post motivational messages, but they're not always positive. They're kind of things like, today might feel like a really crappy day for you, but that's okay. Let it be a crappy day. You feel like not getting out of your bed today. That's okay. Don't do it. Don't force yourself to do things that maybe just feel too much for you, because mm-hmm. tomorrow is another day and you start again anew. And, just say, okay, I'm going to have a crap day today. I'm not even going to bother trying to do the iron or the washing or whatever it is that you feel you have on your plate. And to be honest, it's those small things that just all build up. And then you start to feel, this is just too much for me. Yeah. And you start to, get anxious, you start to worry. And it's allowing yourself to fall back on your normal standards. It's allowing yourself to not do the things that you normally did. And that's really, really difficult for people to do. It's really difficult for people to say, my house is a mess, but I'm not going to bother cleaning it today, because I just don't feel up to it.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier about blokes. And yeah, I am a bloke. And there is, I hate to say it, but there is that macho thing. If you ever try talking to your pal about, I'm feeling a bit crap today. Normally in Northern Ireland, there's that thing. You get a slap along the back of the head and towel the ways up. And, there's that whole macho thing. You beat your chest and you move on. But it's very much the case that we need more blokes to talk about things about mental health. Do you know what I mean?
Found one of the most effective things for us. One of our members is a gentleman, Derek Williams, who runs Procore drums down there in Rathfriland. And Derek will tell you himself, he has struggled with mental health himself. And people in the band scene would look at Derek and go, there's no way. I mean, his nickname's Devil. And there's no way.
Manly, like
he is, a big guy, muscles, tattoos. You would never say that there. And he's always so bubbly and cheerful and happy. And people look at him and go, "There's no way, right? Absolutely no way." And Derek goes out and he talks to people at band practice, and you can actually see the men in the audience listening, going, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
Me too. So it's obviously okay for me to feel like this, because like Derek's feeling like this, I felt like this. And it's that connection. It's knowing that you're not on your own. And, I think the first reaction everyone has, like you said, really not feeling it today, I'm just feeling crap. Your first reaction naturally is to chivvy them out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But don't, turn around and say, seriously? Is there anything in particular that's bothering you? Do you want to talk about it? And it's as you say, it's that stigma, and that in itself can stop a lot of people. So what we have found is a lot of people don't want to do it face to face, but they're quite happily doing it by text. Yeah. So that's part of the reason that the page was set up, in that people can send us private messages through Facebook, You will be talking to the page. If you want to know who you're talking to, you can ask. If you don't want to know, you'll not be told. And it could be any one of 16, 17, 18 people, as I say. We do have members of the team who specialize in mental health themselves, who work in that industry. Other people like myself who have maybe gone through mental health issues themselves. I suffered from burnout 20 odd years ago and have been in heavy doses of antidepressants ever since. And, people will say to me, Valerie, you're the last person that I ever thought would be depressed. But I am, and I do get the days where I struggle. And I think people who have gone through that before need to be a bit braver about speaking out and say, yeah, I struggled. I was off work for 10 months. It's got to, once we get over the stigma of saying, yes, we've been there, then I think it makes people easier for other people to say, well, how did you get through that? What did you do? And it's not necessarily a case of you'll go to your doctor and they'll give you medication. And a lot of people don't like medication. Personally, I'm happy to take 2 tablets every morning for the rest of my life and it'll stop me feeling that way again. But other people don't like medication, and it's all a personal choice. And there's so many different methods of, mindfulness, relaxation techniques, all that kind of stuff that are really good. And sometimes you don't even feel like going to band practice. You just can't be bothered. It's getting that motivation up and going that is sometimes the biggest sign of depression first. I just can't be bothered doing it,
For sure. So can I ask then, folks, just to we're going to wrap it up in a very neat bow here, but we're going to leave the door very much open for anyone who's listening to the show right now, and we might have mentioned something that might have struck a chord with you. Please reach out to us on the Big Rab Show. Our email address is always bigrabshow@gmail.com. And we'll do what we can to give you all the available resources and stuff. But also, Alicia, do you want to remind folks then about the group and how people can possibly contact them if they need some help?
So get in contact with any of us and we'll get leaflets, posted to you for your halls or wherever you're meeting. Can I just say, look, if you had a sore tooth, you would go to the dentist.
There you go. Yeah, that's the perfect example.
If you are not feeling 100% right, come and speak to us, or try and get some help. You're valuable to lots of people. You don't realize it, but you very much are. And just remember that, and just ask for help. There's no shame in asking for help.
No. Yeah, your life matters. That's one of the hashlines that we use. Your life matters. And also #band family, because that is what we are. So the Facebook page is just simply Light of Foot. You can search for it in the search screen. And as I say, Alicia says, contact us if you want leaflets for your band hall, or if you want someone to come out to talk. It's literally, it's as relaxed as that. It's just, as if we were talking here now. It's not, we're not coming to lecture anybody. We are just there to try and say, it's okay not to be okay.
Exactly. And that's the message I think we're going to close on there. So, Alicia and Valerie, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast this week. Honestly, I think it's been a really valuable conversation, and one of which I hope the piping scene will take to heart. So, yeah, indeed. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rio.